Welcome back. You know what's one thing I've been thinking about a lot recently? It's the idea that every single framework, every single restriction that you put upon yourself, especially if you're trying to improve your life or anything of that sort, can both be a prison of your own making or it can be something that sets you free completely. I've started to think about this ever since downloading Instagram, again, very recently. Now, if you're not aware of it, I was basically off the grid from Instagram for like 5 months. And in a sense, it was good. It definitely teaches you a lot and it sort of resets your brain into functioning normally. Yet, at the same time, it was probably holding back my creative process in a sense because I wasn't allowing myself actually to expose myself to more creators, to more things that other people have created, to different ideas, colors, shots, or videos in general. And it is specifically for that thing that in the last couple of days, I've been thinking about this idea of rebranding my actual channel and doing things differently, doing things for the love of the game, doing things for the sake of creating, for actually enjoying the process of creating content and not just making it mindlessly or just producing it like some kind of factory that just ships out hundreds of these things here. And don't get me wrong, I'm still gonna keep doing the daily videos and all of the other things. But ever since re-downloading Instagram and wanting to also start creating over there, I've noticed that not allowing yourself to be exposed to other things purely because people have told you be careful about Instagram, it can fry your brain. Not allowing yourself to be exposed to other forms of art of other people is actually holding you back more than you could think. So that's exactly what this video here is going to be about today. Before we actually get started on the episode, if you noticed, the series here is not called Monk Mode anymore. The name of the playlist changed, the name of the series itself. It is part of the process of rebranding the channel and also rebranding the way that I create content in general. But it is also because I didn't particularly like the name Monk Mode anymore. It felt a little cringe, honestly. So I said, you know what? For the time being, up until I actually decide upon a name, it doesn't actually need to have a name. This is just me sharing my own journey, my own days, my own thoughts. So it doesn't particularly need to have a name if you understand what the idea is about. But anyway, let's get started on episode 16 today. Now, let's get into episode 16. And the first thing we're going to talk about is dopamine detox and the way that I'm going to change it. Because I've been doing a dopamine detox ever since February, and I've noticed that there is a bit of an issue with it, especially if you're trying to become more creative and you're trying to expose yourself to new ideas. The first thing is obviously if you're not using any other social media or any other platform, you're not exposing yourself to new ideas. That means that down the line, you basically find yourself restricted of ideas. You're restricting your own exposure to ideas, which if you're trying to become a creator and you're trying to create cool things that you generally think are cool, that's not the way to go. You need to, yes, limit information and the things that you're taking in, but you also need to not limit it way too much where you're not exposing yourself at all to other things. So the new way that I'm gonna go about doing the dopamine detox here, I feel honestly is much more flexible, and it allows you to find a balance between consuming and exposing yourself to ideas and also restricting and limiting the amount of information that comes towards you. It's very flexible because you don't necessarily have to follow this guideline here, but you can basically set it however you want. I'm gonna look at it from month to month, but it's gonna be on average, I'm hoping, or I'm aiming at 2 weeks of dopamine detox and 2 weeks taking a break from a dopamine detox. The good thing is that it can be 1 week dopamine detox, 1 week break, 1 week dopamine detox, and 1 week break. They could be 2 weeks together of detox and then 2 weeks of break. It could be 3 weeks of detox and 1 week of break. It's generally very, very flexible, and I think that this is probably the best way to go about it if you're actually trying to make it sustainable long term. Because I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that cutting yourself away from social media or just not worrying about it anymore is a good thing. In a sense, social media is way too used nowadays that if you cut yourself away for like 3 or 4 months, and trust me, I've noticed it, even some people start to completely forget about you. Some people don't, some people do, but I think since I want to also start creating on other platforms, this is the best way to go, and also the best way to expose yourself to ideas and also limit the exposure to content and brain rust that you find on the internet. So I've been thinking also a lot about the idea of looking for the vibe. I saw a video, and I forgot from who this video here was, but I saw a video talking about one of the people that has inspired me the most when it comes to content, Daniel Dallin, I think I said his name right. And this person analyzing his content was basically talking about how the majority of the people who you follow on, maybe it's YouTube, maybe it's Instagram, maybe it's anywhere else, Twitch, could be anything literally. What they are doing right is they're managing to sell you a vibe. They're managing to create a certain vibe around themselves and the content that they create and what they bring to the table. That's the thing that you actually like. Sure, you might like their personality, you might like the advice, but most importantly, it all comes down to the vibe that they make you feel, the way that they make you feel when you watch the videos, maybe because you're late to them, because you look up to them, or anything of that sort. So I've been thinking about this idea of looking for the vibe, and I've also made a video that came out yesterday for you, but today for me. So if we're looking at someone like Imengadzi and the content that he creates through his platforms, the vibe that he's selling you is the old money kind of vibe, the one of a very rich young person also dressing up very simply with the supercars and all of these things here. Now, when it comes to finding your own vibe for your own personal brand or anything that you're creating, there are a few things that you have to take into consideration because it is a little tricky at the end of the day. The first thing is that obviously it's not going to be an overnight flick of a switch kind of thing. I mean, the idea is going to come up to you, and then from that day on, you start thinking about it a little bit more. But for you to figure out how you want to create and the vibe that you want to bring to your channel, and also just discovering your vibe in general, it's going to take time. You're going to have to experiment with things. You're going to have to experiment with colors, angles, the way that you create, the style of videos, the editing. So the first thing that you have to take into consideration is that it's not going to be an overnight process, and it's not as easy as saying, okay, I'm gonna look for my vibe, tomorrow you wake up and you figured it out. It's not gonna be that easy. So obviously experimentation is key. You have to experiment with things, and also patience is very important because it's gonna take time. But the other thing that's also very important is the volume that you're creating. So that is basically the relation between how much content you're creating and the quality of the content that you're creating. Because if you're really trying to look for your vibe, you sort of have to strike a balance between creating the most amount of content that you can while also trying to make it the best that you possibly can. It's very tough in a sense because usually these things here shouldn't go together. You know, if one goes up, the other one goes down. But that's exactly part of the process of finding your own vibe. You have to experiment a lot and see, okay, if I make X amount of content, is the quality gonna be on par with it, or is it gonna be lower? If the quality goes lower, probably cut down the content a little bit and try to make the quality of it a little better. So it's kind of something that you have to juggle in your own hands and see how you want to go about it. The other last thing that I've been thinking about a lot throughout this week here is something that I call the hour of silence. I've been reading Stillness is the Key on the Kindle from Ryan Holiday. Great book. It was suggested to me by someone. And the thing that it made me think about, because of one of the chapters that it had, now I don't remember the name of the chapter, but one of the things that it made me think about is how we so badly try to avoid silence to the point where we're sort of scared of it in a sense. I found it very relatable to me, this thing here, because sometimes when I'm doing the elliptical, when I'm stretching or doing other things, I always try to have some kind of noise in the background to not to distract me, honestly. So while reading this book and this chapter here, I've thought about it and I was like, look, in all honesty, it would probably be very, very beneficial for me to set some time every single day. It doesn't necessarily have to be 1 hour, but setting some time where I don't distract myself with anything and I just not even do nothing, just not have any sort of noise in the background. And so far, I've started to really enjoy it. So the way that I go about structuring this hour of silence is basically doing 10 minutes on the elliptical, 10 minutes of stretching, and then 10 minutes of meditation. After that, I just sit here at my desk with a journal and I just write some things down, or else I just lay down in bed and do nothing. The reason why I think that this habit of setting some time away every single day, or almost every single day if you can't, just to stay in silence and not have anything to distract you, is something that I've been thinking about related to the dopamine detox and how I'm changing it. Because in the days that I do use my phone, I do notice that I'm maybe a little bit more foggy or I waste a little bit of time. So forcing yourself to stay away from any kind of device for at least 1 hour every single day, if you're not doing a dopamine detox, it could be a great way to actually do a small dopamine detox, like a mini one, and implementing it into your everyday life. It doesn't have to be 1 hour, it can be more, it can be less, depending on you and whatever you want it to be. But since I'm also doing a proper dopamine detox for half of the month, I think that this is way more than enough. And also, it's something that pushes you towards listening to yourself, listening to your own thoughts, listening to your own ideas, and forcing you to be present in the moment. So when I'm doing the elliptical and I'm not playing anything in the background anymore, maybe a video or music, I actually find myself just thinking about maybe new ideas, things that I could be doing. Most often than not, I do get new ideas and I just have to stop and write something down. This is a very simple way to force yourself to be present a little bit more throughout the day. And also, it's honestly a great opportunity to put yourself in a situation where you stop being so scared of silence, where you stop trying to dread silence so much. And I've honestly started to really enjoy this. I'll also make a separate video on this differently. I want to make it a little bit more cinematic. And honestly, I can't wait up until I get my camera. But I'm gonna wait a little bit longer before I get the camera, because I want to buy the whole thing together. I want to buy everything, lenses, tripods, carry-on bags and everything. And honestly, that's pretty much been it for the episode. I've just been thinking a lot about new ways to improve the things that I create and the way that I go about creating. And also because I want to use this time right now before I get the camera as sort of like a training ground, so that once I get the camera, I already have a little bit of skill and I can start creating the things that I have in my mind more accurately and more closer to the vision that I have. So yeah, anyway, I have nothing else to say for this video here for the time being. I think I'm gonna record a couple more clips, maybe record a couple of videos for this coming week today. And yeah, I'll see you tomorrow with a new video.